Good day. Today I'm gonna be discussing Lesson 23, building a user login and hashing passwords. And I have Lindo navigating my session. Cool. So,
Hi everyone, I'll be the navigator of this session.
alright, cool. So, in this lesson, we basically just covered creating a user login form and hashing data in our database with bcrypt, and also creating a validation function to validate our data that we input when we're creating a user. So, firstly, I'm gonna talk about the code in main.js. So, first we imported um, express validator for the whole validation function that I'm gonna talk about. But firstly, we over here created these two routes, a get and post route, specifically um, for the logins, so the user authentication. So here in this post route over here, basically when a user logs in here, a post request is made. As soon as that request is made, then this authenticate method is called, right? As well as this redirect view method. So that's what happens when the user makes that post request to this API. So this authenticate method is here in my user's controller. So this is the authenticate method that's called as soon as the user makes that post request by filling in the data when logging in. But before that, the login page is rendered as a response so that they can input their data. And yeah, so basically this method has a callback, an arrow function where it uses this find one method or function to basically find the email of that specific user that logged in. After that's done, then there's this promise over here, and in this promise there's an arrow function where this user parameter takes holds the the email for that login for that logged in user. Then within the promise there's an if statement where it's saying that if the user is found, so if the user is true, then a password comparison is done, right? And in this promise there's this if statement where it's checking if the password matches. So basically, if the password matches, then basically it will redirect you to the user's page. Hence why it has the user ID over here. So it will redirect you to that specific user's page that logs in, and show the success message over here. But if that doesn't happen, then it shows an error message and the user remains on the login page, basically. So that's basically how the authenticate method works. Then going back into my main.js, over here we have this route which is basically for creating a user in the front end. So when the user makes that post request by creating the account, then this validate function here is called, also the create function as well, and the redirect function. So for the validation, which is set here in my user's controller, So basically, this method is just validating the information that the user inputs when creating a new account. So essentially, it uses rec.check to basically check the email format, um, the zip code format. So it checks if the email is valid, if the zip code is valid, and also checks if the password is empty or not. Then after that's done, then there's this get validation result function where basically it's basically like getting the validation result. So in this promise over here, this parameter error obviously stores the error, and then there's an if statement where it's basically saying if the error is not empty, right? So basically, in other words, if there is an error, then the error message will be saved to this variable messages, and an error message will be passed to the front end. So that's basically what this if statement does. But if this is not true, then basically it gives us the validation result, essentially. Then, so that's specifically for validation and authentication. Then we also basically created a function for hashing our passwords. So over here in my user.js, where we created the models, we have this function over here. It's a pre-save function. So basically it's saying that this function here should be executed before we save the user's data to the database, right? So we have this function where we use bcrypt. Bcrypt is used in order to do the hashing of the password. So what hashing basically is like we're converting the user's password that they made in the front end. We're converting that to like an encrypted password, as you can see here in the database. So it has all these numbers and letters as a string. So that's what hash does, and just saving that hash password to this variable over here. And yeah, so if I can show how all of that works in the front end. So starting off, yeah, with login specifically, I can place my email and the password, and this is the login page. So as soon as we access this URL, then this is the page that gets rendered, right? So that's basically referring to our login page in our EJS, essentially over here. That's what gets rendered to the front end, and we fill in our details as soon as we log in. Well, yeah, if it's incorrect, then this flash message gets popped up. But let me put the correct password. Interesting. Let's see. Okay, let's create a new user then, because I don't remember the password. Let's see. Is it users new, Lindo? Nah?
It's users/login.
Yeah, but to create a new user.
Oh, to create a new yes.
Because I forgot that password, I think. So. Let's do this. Cool. Then you said users log in. Yeah.
Yeah.
There. So as soon as alright, cool, thanks. So as soon as I log in, then I end up on this page over here, right? This is specifically the user data for this specific user. So basically that would be where would that? It's basically referring to this over here. It's this redirect, which redirects us to users, and then in this dictionary it has user.id, so it gets that specific users page, which is here. So that's how the authentication works in this code. That's it for this lesson. Linda, is there anything you want to add? Cool.